Good evening, everyone. This is Chris with Laurel City Historical Fencing. This is continuing our series looking at Liechtenauer's verse, the Zettel, that is the foundation for all of our material that we use for the German system, and the commentaries from supposedly a Peter von Danzig or manuscript 44A8. And this series of videos is kind of our little class way of meeting up during these times where we can't meet up in person, going over the content of some of this stuff and really talking about the theory and practice of how some of these things work. So some of the kind of conversations that we might not have time to really delve into when we're trying to teach class. So tonight we are looking at some of the cuts, okay, some of the techniques that come after the master cut. Basically, the structure is, for those that are just kind of finding us now, the beginning of the text goes over some prologue material and some really fundamental stuff talking about, you know, making sure that you're stepping with your cuts properly and that, you have like the courage and you have the will to fight. If you're cowardly and scared, then you're not going to be a good fighter and this kind of stuff, and just some general advice. And then it goes into the breakdown of the 5 secret or master cuts, the Zornhau, the Krumpau, the Zwerchhau, the Schielhau, the Scheitelhau, and those are, from my kind of feelings on this, are the way that we go from being out of range in the fight to entering into range with our opponent. And then at the end of the technique, or at the end of the section, there's several techniques that are a little more, both some are more concepts of not specific call-out techniques maybe, but just, hey, here's something you can do. And there's also some stuff that is what to do now that you've thrown that initial cut and you're in range with your opponent. Here's some follow-on plays. Here's how to respond. So everyone's ready to get into some of this? Okay. Wrong page. I'm going to drop my book and make a mess. Okay. I'll start off. Let's just read the... here it is. We're going to read the German first, or the Zettel first, and then we'll talk about, see what you guys think, and then we'll go into it, into the commentaries. So the first one is chasing, or Nachreisen, we've talked about in class. Learn the chasing twice or slice into the weapon. 2 outer intentions. The work after that begins. The work after that begins. Sorry, if I can put that there. And test the attacks if they are soft or hard. Learn the feeling. The word instantly slices sharply. Chase twice. If you hit, do the ancient slice as well. So, Jack in particular here, because I know you were we were talking about this a little bit before the class. What anything stand out to you in any of that material there?
The Nachreisen, definitely. Right.
Now, do you remember? I mean, yeah. So you remember the term? Do you remember what it was?
I do not. I can't remember exactly which it was.
Okay. The translation is a good way to remember it. The Nachreisen is the following after. So for you, someone that Robin and Jack, you guys have done the drills. I believe both of you have probably done the drills in class where we practice where one person will be, put my stuff down without making a mess again, just standing in Flug, and we'll practice moving back to maybe Vom Tag or withdrawing, and then in response, when the person goes to move, we throw that cut in that moment, right?
Yeah.
So the idea, particularly chasing after, is if someone is moving away from you, they can't be moving forward. They can't, if they're actively moving away, they can't be moving at you. So you have a moment to seize that control and basically take control of the the tempo of the fight. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now,
And then the other thing that kind of pops out at me is the ancient slice as well.
Oh, there's a little paragraph about that coming up that goes into exactly what that is, or a little more explanation of what that is. And if I remember correctly, I have a little bit of video of my interpretations of that, so we can take a look at that in a few minutes. A part here that I like, I find interesting is in the original text here. It says, and test the attacks if they are soft or hard. Learn the feeling. That's that fueling, and I know we've talked about that plenty of times.
Oh yeah.
So he's talking about the following after the Nachreisen, the chasing after, but there's also a little bit of a reminder there, because it's definitely stuff that he's alluded to and talked about a little bit before when it came to some of the other master cuts and things. But he's calling out again that, like, feel the pressure. Make sure that you're aware of what's going on. Don't just respond without that sense of feeling about what your opponent is committed to.
Because you don't know what because you don't basically know what your opponent's going to do if you go in with that one master cut. You have to have a backup plan, and then have a backup plan with that backup plan.
Yep, I know, Jack, you're getting better at that. That was something that you were working with for a while. You'd have that first plan, and then you'd get in, and then if that didn't work, you would kind of lock up a little bit. But with practice and lots of sparring and lots of training, you're getting used to that now. As soon as you come in, you feel that pressure, and like anybody, you don't always make the 100% perfect decision about which way to go, but you're giving yourself that moment to feel the contact and say, okay, well, they're pushing hard, I'm going to come around. They're pushing soft, I'm going to wind. And you're trying to feel out their pressure and translate that to where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, it's getting that I'm having more time with training. It's getting more kind of clearer to me, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, like I've said, you do it 10,000 times and it starts to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to, we'll move right into the commentaries from von Danzig then. This is page 123 in St. George's Name. I know some people have it. This is the text and gloss. This is the text and gloss. The Nachreisen, the chasing. Chase twice or slice into the weapon. Two outer intentions. The work after that begins, and test the attacks if they are soft and hard. So that's a little bit of just that reminder of what we went over. Here's the commentaries. Gloss. Note, chasing is diverse and manifold, and should be done with striking and thrusting with great foresight against combatants who strike free and long stroke, and will really observe nothing of the true art of the sword. Do the chasing thus. When you come to him in the Zufen, then stand with your left foot forward in the guard von Tag, and see what he is going to execute against. If he strikes above long at you, then see that he doesn't reach you with his stroke, and note as his sword goes down to the ground, and spring to him with your right foot and strike above to his head, before he can come back up with his sword. Thus he is struck. I'm going to wait to go on to the next one so we can talk about that. So this is a very simple concept here. Before we go on, any thoughts before I give my impressions and commentaries?
What are your thoughts on it then?
Okay. I like to get you guys talking too. So, okay. So the first little bit there when it talks about the gloss, I think tactically there's a good little bit of discussion here where it talks about this is best used against someone that doesn't know how to fight well. There's some comments there. The idea of against combatants who strike free and long strokes and will really observe nothing of the true art of the sword.
So basically,
this is a technique that is.
So I was going to say, you could basically use it against someone that's basically using the buffalo against you, kind of thing, right?
Very similar. Yep. Very similar kind of idea. This is somebody that isn't as skilled a fighter. And the fact that if you notice, a lot of our master cuts end with us, with our point more or less. I mean, not exactly so, but a little bit more of that center dominance in the fight, right? Most of the way we enter, we end up coming in where we're kind of in that zone right here. This is talking about that common fencer that is going to throw those long cuts, reaching his sword out and then missing and coming and going down to the ground rather than stopping here. So this is a technique to use against it. Now, when he talks about do the chasing thus, when he goes into the exact explanation here, I think this is a great little technique to use when you see somebody fighting, just like he's saying, with a lot of power and not a lot of finesse here. The idea being that essentially all you do is when you see that they're that kind of fighter, just pull yourself out of the fight just enough so that you don't get hit. Let their sword swing past you, and then in that moment between where they're cutting down, and before they can transition to cut up, take that control and jump in at them. So it's all about timing on them, because they can't be moving backwards and forwards at the same time. They can only be doing one or the other.
So basically, take over the center line. So basically, take over the center line before they take over the center line, kind of thing.
Yeah, because they're passing through the center line and then leaving it open and empty, so then you take it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I have a little clip from this. Let me hit my screen here, and there it is, and share. Oop, I'm at the other part, though. There we go. Okay. So here's our video. Now, we're both in Von Tog. She's cutting long at me, and then I come in after. So now here's a little thing that I like to do, not as much with longsword, but with some of the other weapons. If you notice, compared to a lot of the other videos, my stance is very forward weighted. Now, we also shot this video a little bit uphill, so it's a little off. But if you notice, my weighting on my stance here is a little more forward, right? So I do that on purpose myself if I'm trying to encourage my opponent to make this type of attack. So I lean forward into it so my opponent thinks, oh, I'm in range. I can totally hit them. And then, no, they actually can't quite hit me. So I lean back just enough so that I'm clear, but I'm not out of the fight. Now, when we talk about the Zufeschen, the whole idea of coming into range, because the other person is stepping with their cut, well, that means they're now in range. So I can cut in response. It's got to be relatively quick there. But let's rewind that slow. So here I am. I weight myself forward to encourage the attack. When they come by, boom. Before they can rise up, ideally.
What if they rise up while you're trying to do that?
That is a fantastic question that leads right into the next part of our discussion. Thank you. That was a good transition, Jack. So any questions before we move on, though, besides that one? Do you have any other questions about that?
I think that was the only really real question.
Robin, do you have something? What was that?
There are feints that you could do in response as well if you were opposing you doing that.
Oh, you mean from the other side?
Yeah, if somebody recognizes that you're being led in like that by pushing forward, and then they could test that a bit too.
Oh yeah, I mean if I had someone that I knew was kind of doing that and kind of shifting their weight forward,
right.
You might be able to throw a false cut at them just to get them to lean back, and then follow the same principle because they're leaning back. So now you have a little bit of an advantage yourself, and just keep pressing forward. add an extra step in or something, yeah, you can kind of transition that a little bit.
Don't you not want to really? Don't you really not want to? Oh, sorry about that. Do you not?
No, go ahead, Jack.
Not, I don't know how to word this. You don't really want to lean forward when you're entering a fight. Am I right? Or
no, not a lot.
Because if you're leaning forward, you're basically kind of baiting yourself.
Yeah. But in context, in this kind of scenario against a fighter that maybe doesn't know as well, and if they're kind of more of a common fencer and don't know, that whole what was that line? Observe nothing of the true art of the sword. We're talking about a person that hasn't trained much, so their concept and their idea of what maybe their reach is not quite what they think it is. A lot of people tend to think that their reach with a longsword is a lot longer than it really is, because a few factors. For one, when you have two hands on your weapon, you've paired the two sides of the body, so it's not how far out my lead hand goes, it's how far out my backhand can reach, right? Yeah. Compared to a single-hander, a messer or an arming sword can sometimes, with a good fighter, with some practice, can get more reach than a two-handed longsword, even though the blade itself is longer. Sometimes I'm saying, not exactly every single time, but there are some longer messers that are shorter than a longsword that have more range because of that extra reach with one hand. So a lot of people that don't know this stuff tend to think of, oh, it's a longsword. This is really big. I have so much reach right now. But then when they actually go to cut, they don't have as much actual cutting right. But of all things, I see this a lot when we do cutting exercises with like tatami or whatever medium we're using. A lot of people that haven't cut before are thinking that the sweet spot on the sword that really wants to just cut through the material is much further out, and the first couple cuts that they throw oftentimes are just on the way out towards like the very tip of the sword. In fact, I know I can't remember who it was, but there was someone that was cutting for the first time, and technically their cut went all the way through the target, but they had pulled back their hands so far that it went through the front half of the target. It was a perfectly clean cut, but they had thought that they had full reach to go all the way through the entire target, but they only went the first like inch and a half. So the other thing about that too is, I'm going to stand up for this without stepping on the kitty. This is also talking about fencing long. Sorry, Leia, I'm trying not to step on you. You're right. When you throw a cut, you're not throwing your cut out with your arms outstretched, right?
Yeah.
If you're actually cutting, your arms are here, in towards the body where you have the structure, right? Mm-hmm. You're not doing this, reaching way the hell out, because this isn't how you actually cut. You cut here. So when someone does that, they think, I'm going to hit him. I can totally get him. But they're overextending themselves. They're awkward. They don't know how to fight. They've whooshed past you, and now their sword is on the ground. And now you have that moment to just come in yourself and get them before they come up. Ideally, before they come up.
Yeah. And it's basically you want to recover before they come up too.
Oh yeah. Especially, I mean, it depends, because if you just beat them right in the head, you don't have to worry about recovering that much. You put, if they're suffering from light penetration of the brain, you don't really have to stress about how exactly that they, how exactly they're going to respond to you, besides maybe some twitching.
I'm bleeding a lot.
So, just, if you just want to hit and then move away, not because they're dangerous, but because you don't want to get all the gross bits that are about to come out of them on.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if I'm in
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm in a medieval fight and I'm wearing really nice armor, I don't want somebody else's blood and entrails on my nice armor. That's totally gross. Out in the summer sun, that stuff's gonna bake on there, and you're gonna be scraping it off with a. Yeah. Yeah, what, Jack? We were just talking about that, like training in armor in this kind of weather.
Oh yeah,
It's not fun. This weekend has been hot. Yeah, I'm getting too old for that stuff. When I was your age, Jack, I had no problem with it. Now that I'm getting older, I'm like, it's fine. I've done enough. I'm gonna take a break and sit in the shade.
Now get off my lawn.
Yeah. No, I'm not quite get off my lawn yet. I'm getting close.
That guy just want to drive to your house and just step on your lawn just for the fun of it.
I'm gonna get you with the same arrows I use for the bears with the rubber. I have my my compound bow. I have arrows that have basically the same sort of rubber stoppers we have on the feathers on the training sword. Just tag you in the back with one of those.
Have you hit them yet? Have you gotten them yet?
No, I'm a little jerk. As soon as they hear me open the door, they like no, and they run away. And I don't want to lose an expensive compound bow arrow into the woods. Oh, Sarah just commented that juicy chivalric goodness all over your armor.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Oh, I don't know if she did that on purpose, but that's actually the shirt I'm wearing. No. My this is Historica Clothier's like a division or whatever of Revival Clothing. They have a line of t-shirts and other modern clothing things with like medieval-y stuff on them. And this one has a poleaxe on it, and it says poleaxe, a can opener for getting to the juicy chivalric goodness on the inside. It was a derived from a quote from the from the little prologue at the beginning of the Poleaxe DVD that Christian and I made. With that was the quote was from the curator of the old Higgins Armory Museum. So yeah, I like the. It's one of my favorite shirts because it's got a quote on it from a movie I directed, so it just makes me happy. I wear this one all the time. Okay, any questions on that basic bit of Nachreisen then, or ready to move on to the next part?
Yeah.
Okay, I know, Jack, you were kind of asking about this. So I'll read this next paragraph. Yep, paragraph here first. The technique described here is called the outer min, or the outer intention. Note, when he has struck past you and you have chased after him with a stroke the opening, so that's the last play. If he then goes quickly up with his sword and comes under your sword, then remain strongly on it. If he lifts your sword right up with his, then spring with your left foot behind his right and strike him with a Zversha, or otherwise to the right side of his head, and work quickly again against his left side with doubling or else with other technique, depending on whether you sense he is soft or hard at the sword. So thoughts on that?
So basically it's saying that when you are, that you want to basically get your, you can easily step your foot behind his and to make another play kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. So you were asking about, well, in that last bit, what if they, you shoot it in after they've missed you with their first strike? Well, what if they rise up from below? Well, if they rise up from below, he's saying that what you need to do is you need to put pressure on his blade. Your priority kind of, if you see him start to rise up, you need to kind of shift priority a little bit from that Oberhau that you were about to deliver, or the thrust or whatever it was that you were about to deliver with your initial play, and switch that up to thinking about, okay, well, now I need that sense of fueling. I need to work from the bind and see where he's going with it. And yeah, you can do a Zverish. The Zverish is nice from there, from my own playing around. So
what I was thinking that you can do is I can't remember the name of the play where it's you go in with the Crunk, the I think it's not the Shadow. Is it the Shadow Howl? The one?
It is the Shadow Howl. Yep.
That's what I was.
Assuming, anyway. I think I know what you're getting to.
That's the response I was thinking that you can do is if you come in with a high bomb tog, they can easily come up with if you're going for a high bomb tog when their sword's down below, they can easily come up with a Shadow Howl. And
they come up with the Crunk, yeah. But yeah, I know what you're getting at here. Yep.
Yeah.
Basically, some of those drills that we've done with our practicing our Sheitel Howl against our opponent in Ulber are very similar to this kind of idea. The idea of attacking high so that they have to come up to defend. And some of these things, there's definitely some crossover here that you're going to see between different sections of this material. The big difference between that and this Jack is just a matter of timing, because this is on the intent of our opponent has thrown an Oberhowl and is about to transition into an Unterhowl, right? They're going 1-2. Throwing that Sheitel Howl at them, it's a very similar kind of concept, but the difference there is we're assuming that our opponent is waiting in Ulber for that. They're simply in the guard. For this one, they're sort of in Ulber for a moment, but they're transitioning. They're not staying. The throwing the Sheitel Howl is perfect when your opponent is standing on guard and waiting for you in Ulber. But it's the same basic kind of concept. So
okay,
good connection there, though, Jack.
Thank you.
So let's check the video for this guy. Let's jump back over here, moving share. So there's the last one. Boom. Oh, I shot it again. One.
Ooh, you slipped a little.
Should put shoes on. Okay. So this one should be the follow-on with the Auserman here. Boom. So I come up and I cut to the outside.
Or do you?
So
Senate March 79. Senate Kara is on.
Here it is. So as they come in, I am pulling back to get out of the way, and then delivering my cut back at them, as my Nachreisen is. But this time, instead of just standing there and getting hit, the person is responding by rising up from below, and they're meeting my sword. But instead of saying commit, instead of just trying to still hit them, because they're striking up, I'm going to give them some resistance, be strong against it, and then I'm going to throw that Zversh with a step of my left foot and a strike to the right side of their head. Boom. So here's the slow-mo. One, cut in. They come up and block. Timing on that, I know in our video isn't exactly perfect. I kind of hesitated for a second there, but we're trying to get the video for the take here to look good. But so they come up, and then from there, I add that second step and strike with my Zveresh. Now you notice one of the nice things is when I do this Zveresh from here, because I'm staying on their sword, I'm keeping that sword. My sword is staying on. I'm trying to make this as clear as I can because these are both white. But my sword is staying on the outside. That's that bit in the whatchamacallit, in the text here. Oh, that wasn't what I meant it to do. Okay, sorry. Okay, let me try one more time. So, so here is, sorry guys. Here is their sword, and so a different color. Behind their sword, there's mine.
It's
So-
lightsabers.
Yeah, I picked those colors for a reason. Thank you. But in the bit here where it talks about the outer intention, the outer min, this is where that idea, the outer, because I'm outside the normal bind, right? Normally, if we've both thrown, say, Oberhaus, I'd be on the other side of a sword, right?
Yeah.
So because she's coming up from below rather than throwing an Oberhau, I end up on the outside rather than the inside. So I'm going to just throw a cut there. Now, this is also pretty safe feeling too because of that structure. I have that control, and you can't see it as well in a two-dimensional picture here, but with the angle on my hands and on my blade, I'm very safe from her just trying to come down because, well, for one, I would be, my sword would be buried in at least partway through her head. But with the angle I'm pushing out with that Zverch, if she tries to come down, it's nowhere near my face or head or neck or shoulders or anything. It's way off to the side.
Got cross guard all day.
Yep, exactly. So I'm if you can get the time on that outer intention, the outer min, that's a fun technique to do because it's one of those that when you do it, you very much have like the other person kind of cut off while you're hitting them. They kind of lose control over anything, which is it's very satisfying. So any questions on that?
No, it's pretty straightforward to me, I think.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Before I go to the other video, I'm gonna make sure I got that was that. Oh, okay, I did do. Okay. There's one other thing. So before we move on, so it said in here, oh, sorry, just my page there. Spring with your left foot behind his right and strike him with the Zverch, or otherwise to the right side of his head and work quickly against the left side with doubling or else with other techniques depending on. So he says with doubling here, as in duplieren. So in addition to doing it with the Zverch, I also have a little bit of a video clip here of doing that same thing, but this time with a duplieren as well. So one, boom. There's that initial cut. I dodge out of the way and strike back in. They come up and defend. Once they defend and try to separate me and they're pushing hard, I use my duplieren, my doubling, like we had done back when we did our Zornhau play several videos ago in this series. I use my doubling to strike in at her. Based on the fact that he says use doubling, and I'm deciding this based on the fueling I'm getting in the sword. If she pushes a little harder, I like the doubling.
It almost traps that blade as well.
Yeah. But if they're a little softer at the blade, then it's not as good of an option.
Mhm.
Because you end up coming off the sword when you cross the body there. If they're not giving me a lot of pressure and I do this, I'm releasing their sword, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that would be
I'm
bad.
still hitting them in the face, and that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe as they fall over dead, their sword falls on my back leg or something. I don't know. It makes me a little nervous. I want to have that sense of control, and the best way of that is having the fuel and having that pressure in the bind to feel where your opponent's intent is going. So, any other questions on that?
I
Okay.
thought,
So
for some reason, I thought Duplaren was more aimed for the hip joint.
that you're thinking Mutier.
Yeah, then I realized it was. I get sometimes the two confused.
Oh no, that's fair. Yeah, a lot of people do. They're listed basically together. Duplier and Mutier are kind of in the same little section, and the general they kind of rhyme and stuff. So
Yeah.
they sound very similar. So the next bit, moving on to page 124. Here, note a good chasing on the sword from the stroke from below. Note, when you attack him with the stroke from below, or slashing or stand against him in the guard called Alber, and he falls on you with his sword before you can come up. So, in other words, ending up in a very similar position, but from the other side. Then remain thus with your sword beneath his and lift upwards. If he winds on your sword to your face or chest, then do not let him depart from your sword and pursue, or work with the point to his next opening. Or if he strikes around from your sword, then pursue or chase with your point again as before. Note, from all strokes and from all guards, you should pursue him as soon as you see that he strikes wrong or makes himself open with the sword. Sword from, or read before, maybe before, just translation note or a transcription note. But see that you do not make yourself open or overcommit to your stroke, and observe this on both sides. So, any thoughts about that?
So basically, it's saying that try not to have him take his sword off of yours and try to look at it from both angles, kind of thing.
Yep, there's definitely a big part of that there that they're very much ties to what I was saying a minute ago about the desire to keep pressure in the bind. Maybe not even pressure, but contact. Do you want when you're in range to hit your opponent? It's often much better to have direct physical contact with your opponent's blade. That way, you can sort of feel out what their intention is. You don't want to leave them, because once you leave their sword, you don't know what they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of this. Do not make yourself open or overcommit your stroke. Like you don't want to disengage with an opponent that's in range. You want to maintain contact. So the first part of this too is also talking about what to do. So a very similar kind of setup, rising up from Alber or cutting up from below, either way, because it says whether you're cutting up from below with a slash or cutting at him from the guard Alber, and he falls on you with his sword before you can come up, that ends up basically the same kind of bind that the Nachreisen has. So I'm down low, and I've come up, whether it's false edge or coming up with the true edge, I've come up and gotten pressure down on their sword. So this is a bind that doesn't happen that often for us. Normally we're both in some position here, right? However we're kind of here. This is on the other side. It's a little unusual. But the basic idea there is keep pressure in the bind and look for an opening with your point. Look for something that you can hit. So let's pull that up. Video share. There's that ending of the last one. Oh, there's a lot of dead time there. Okay, so here's me coming up from below, from Oliver against the strike and meeting. Once I'm there and they start to seek the opening, then I look to seek the opening myself. So that's that bit about.
I didn't know we had that.
Where was the line? If he winds on your sword to your face or chest, then do not let him depart from your sword and pursue and work with the point to his next opening. So this is that concept here. So we'll watch it again in slow. So here it is coming up in the slow motion. I'm having an attack struck at me. So I come up from below in response. And rule number 1, don't get hit. So now neither of us is in a really tactically advantageous position here, but I didn't get hit, so that's what matters. As soon as, just like we've done so many techniques, she's tried to cut, it didn't work, so she's going to wind. Once she starts to wind, instead of just letting that happen, see now she's winding and threatening with the point. So if I choose to do nothing here, right, you can kind of see she's got that line of sight coming right in towards my face. That's not exactly a happy thing for me.
No.
So from there, I wind against it and seek another opening. And once that happens, she's not, there's a little bit right here in this video. Again, the artifacts of 2 dimensions. It looks a little more like now she's just aimed down low at my chest. A little bit, but not really. There's a little depth here that she's actually kind of aiming past me. And there's a little shift in my body there. But at the same time, now I have the my point lined up with her lower opening, which then, especially once I start to thrust and collapse that, now her ability to thrust is a little bit more compromised, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little less worried about where her point is at this point because her body's starting to collapse on me. So
I mean,
I feel a little bit safer.
you might have, if you were actually battling, if you're actually, like, there were actual swords, you might have, like, a flesh wound on your arm, but she won't be able to walk, basically, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or
And
she
even
could
then,
be
I'm not
spilling her
super
intestines.
worried about that. Where did my thingy go to clear my, there it is. Clear drawing. Okay. So let me just, that button, and let's pull this back slow. Watch that one more time. So I'm coming in the guard Oliver. I'm having a blow struck at me. I respond by cutting up from below, meeting their blade. In response to that, they begin to wind. And once they start to wind, before they get there, before that wind is completed, and they actually hit me, I'm basically keeping pressure in the bind while looking for an opening myself. And then once I find it, taking whatever opening I can, in this case, the hip, because that helps. In our position, in this exact scenario, it helped me just find the bind a little, find a little way to collapse her a little bit more. Now here's another variant on that. The same idea. This time I cut up with a little more force, and I end up with my sword a little higher, and instead I end up cutting to the thrusting to the face. So same kind of idea. She is cutting at me. I'm rising up from below. And as we go through the actions here, specifically this time too, I end up winding. We're winding at about the same time, give or take, but it ends up so that both our hands are a little higher. So I'm not looking just to thrust to the hip here. I'm looking for thrusting to the opening. In this case, the opening that presented itself was right to the face. So that's what I'm going to take. I'm not going to seek that lower opening if that high opening is available to me, because that seems also pretty effective. That's moving to the next one. So any questions on that?
Not really.
I'm on narcotics.
Okay.
I'm lucky I'm upward.
But I'm glad you're feeling better, Robin.
Getting there.
We're going to have you training with a sword again, hopefully sooner than later, right?
I don't know how long it's going to take for me to actually be physically able again, but
Yeah.
I see no reason why I can't compensate with either lighter swords or, even doing upper body work, even if I Yeah, because I'm not safe to be walking at this point yet. So
Yeah, at some point we maybe will, you know, having you, if you, you know, when we're doing regular classes anyway, 'cause you have an excuse right now, but you know, maybe just sitting in a chair going through some of the guard transitions and some of those drills we do in class, just so that, yeah, you're not pushing yourself to sheer exhaustion, but you're getting a little bit of that upper body workout out of it, a little bit of practice.
what they don't
So
tell you is
we can
that
look
you
at
go
that.
into like a really bad cardio condition.
Okay. So it makes it a little bit tougher.
Yeah, it just affects you in ways that I never could have predicted. Never could
Yeah.
have. I mean, the muscles being cut, that's a whole new ballgame.
Hmm.
They say I'm really
I
strong
can.
where I'm cut. That's
It
like a
doesn't
brand new
matter.
baby. Yeah.
Yep. I never had anything done surgically like you have in that regard, but I had torn my quadricep, like one of the big muscles in my leg, in your leg.
Oh,
I when I was it high school age, I was doing some like mountain biking, whatever, hitting some, you know, trail riding on a bicycle, and wiped out, and I tore that muscle, and for one, that was very painful, but
mhm.
two, it was interesting that I've always been fairly not, I'm not super athletic, but I've always been, you know, ever since like middle school, high school, I've been fairly physically active. I've been doing martial arts, I was swimming, I was doing a lot of stuff. I just
You're
being
physically
completely unable
capable.
to bend my knee. It was just, my leg was just there. I couldn't do anything with it. I
It
couldn't move it.
wasn't
It took,
yours
you
anymore
know, that was months. Yeah. So
when you don't have
yours
command
is,
of your own body.
I, yeah, but yours is a little more severe and a little more, yeah, major than mine. But I can sympathize, you know, to some extent. So that's why we all wish you well.
Thank you. I never could have predicted how extreme this would be. I mean, I knew going in it was going to be tough. I just didn't. You just can't conceive of it unless you've been through it.
Hmm. Yep.
Sarah,
Yeah, and
I'm
then once you've been there,
intense. I'll totally spar with you on a seat.
yeah, we have some foam swords that you can start off with, getting back into some smart.
In the beginning, I couldn't even pick up a glass to drink from.
Yeah, but you said, I don't know if it was when we started recording or if it was before, but you said you were going to be going home this week. So
I'm going home tomorrow morning.
okay. Monday morning for anyone that happens to watch this video later on. But but yeah. So actually, so some of you, by the time you're watching this video later on, like Luke or Jason or somebody that's watching this later in the week, Robin's probably already home. So even better.
Monday the 20th of July.
So close. A few more hours, Robin.
Few more hours. We have a nice night nurse tonight, so it'll go by
Excellent.
easily.
Okay, so we'll continue on here a little bit. Anyone have any questions on that last bit before we move on? No. Okay. So do oh, this, I believe I don't have any specific video for this next section because it's more talking about theory, but I think it's a good theory to talk. So this is page 124 again. Here note the text and gloss of the feeling or fueling and the word instantly, indent. Learn the feeling, the word instantly slices sharply. Gloss. Note, feeling and the word instantly are the greatest and best of the art of the sword. And anyone who is or wants to be a master of the sword and does not understand the feeling has not also learned the word instantly, is not a master, but a buffle or a buffalo at the sword. Therefore, before all else, you should learn these two things well so that you understand them truly. So again, this isn't a specific technique, but this is a paragraph very explicitly telling us, pay attention to this stuff. This is important, right? So the two concepts here is feeling and instantly. I know we talked a little bit about it, but any comments about that before I add my own commentary?
Well, instantly, when I think of the word instantly in this aspect, it's like when someone, like, kind of, when you throw your first attack, anything could happen after that. And you have to also have the feeling of what the bind is going to be like and have an instant response after that.
Yep, that's just the kind of thing I was looking for, Jack. Yep. So it's all about that moment where as soon as there is contact, instantly, or I've also seen it translated as during. It's not a matter of coming into the bind and stopping movie style where you come in and then you flex and you know pause with each other and give each other meaningful glances and then do something. It's that didn't work here. It's not instantly as in the the Flash or something, but
It's like how,
it's the idea of
I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
good. It's the idea of coming in and instead of stopping, you come in, do your first attack, didn't work, boom. Before you have a chance to do anything else, before your opponent has a chance to respond themselves, boom, boom, right?
What I was
What are you
going to say,
Jack?
it's like what Lightsaber Rob says to me all the time. You want to get in there and get out.
Yep. Either get in or get out, or get in and then get in more.
Yeah, exactly.
Except if it's Luke. Don't get in more if it's Luke. He will throw you.
Oh, yeah. I've been thrown by Luke numerous of times.
Unless
I
you
know.
can
Some of them have been
stagger and
funny.
kill
I'm
him.
sorry.
He hates that.
Luke likes to, as the kids say, yeet his opponent. When I was just spending some time doing some training with Jason and Luke recently doing armored fighting, one of the things that we were kind of joking about is apparently amongst a lot of the other HEMA schools, at least at IGX this past year, apparently the reputation was never let someone from Connecticut get past your point, because between me and Jason, everybody's focused on wrestling as well as longsword, when a lot of schools don't focus on it as much. So it was like, if you see a patch from anywhere in Connecticut, just don't get in close. And then we see Jason's guy Mike, and who else? I'm trying to remember who else was competing, but one of his other guys, they're throwing people all over the place. Luke threw somebody almost in almost every longsword fight at IGX. He found a way to throw somebody at some point. Yeah.
So that means if I ever go to IGX, you and Luke should really train me, really train me about throwing people at when they come close in. To keep
we will work on it. We will work on closing distance.
I will do no wrestling.
We'll have entire training days of just get past the point and throw the guy.
Exactly.
Okay, so now let's just continue on a little bit here. Here, note a lesson on the feeling and the word instantly. So this is a couple paragraphs where he really delves into in the Von Danzig manuscript a little into the real meaning behind some of these things. Note, when you come to him in the Zufechten and one of you binds on the other's sword, then as soon as the swords clash together, you should sense at once whether he has bound soft or hard at the sword. And as soon as you have felt that, then think upon the word instantly, which means that as soon as you have felt, you should nimbly work on the sword. Thus he will be struck before he is aware of it. So again, the focus here being that once you've felt their intent in your hands, you need to be working instantly, responding instantly to do whatever appropriate opening you can. Here you should note that feeling and instantly are one single thing, hand in hand, and that one cannot be understood without the other. Understand it thus. When you bind on his sword, then you must, in the hand, at once feel with the word instantly whether he is soft or hard at the sword. And when you have felt that, then you must instantly work according to the soft and hard at the sword. Thus, the two of them are a single thing, and the word instantly is immanent in all techniques. And understand it thus. Instantly doubles, instantly transmutes. instantly changes through, instantly runs through, instantly takes the slice, instantly wrestles, instantly takes the sword, instantly does what your heart desires. Instantly is a sharp word with all masters of the sword, with which all masters of the sword are spliced. If they do not know or understand the word, it is key to the art. So I think there's an interesting bit at the end of this. So obviously the instantly indes is important, but what I like here is the second to last paragraph, instantly doubles. So basically he tells us all the Hauptstücke, all the techniques that we have already, either ones we've already gone over or ones that we will be going over, how those work, how that you basically how you should be applying those instantly in the fight. As soon as that bind happens, as soon as you feel pressure, or little pressure, a lot of pressure, whatever you feel, as soon as you feel that with your opponent, you should be responding with one of these. And it tells us the double, which is a duplieren, the transmute mutieren, the instantly changes through, which is our Durchwechseln, instantly runs through, the I can't think of the German. It's been a long day. I was in the sun. Instantly slices, instantly wrestles, instantly takes the sword, instantly does what your heart desires. I like that bit at the end there. But the idea that the secret to the art is training yourself to respond as soon as that bind happens. Whatever way it is, whichever way you go, whether it's a disarm or whether it's a wrestling thing or whether it's one of those simple plays from the bind, whatever it is, basically you can defeat all the other masters that don't understand this stuff by just responding quickly. And that's why in our regular class we do a lot of drills that involve training that fueling, where we have a certain number of set plays that you can do, but you're not always guaranteed to know what your opponent is going to be, what kind of pressure they're going to be throwing. Maybe we'll change up exactly how we do it, but a lot of those drills where you come into a bind, you're told, this is how, you and your opponent are going to bind a certain way, but we add the variable of you're not going to know which way your opponent is going to give you pressure, or high, low, or strong or weak, or whatever. And then you have to respond. And that takes training. That's not something that we can just read a text and say, oh, well, okay, I just need to, do a disarm instant. No, it's not that easy. But that's what training's for.
Yeah. I like the part where it says Insane does what your heart desires.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I
basically
just like
saying
that.
that to stick to what you're going to do and then just see what happens, kind of thing.
Yeah, and a little bit of like, he lists off all these different techniques that you can use in this moment, and it's and that little bit, do what your heart desires at the end is kind of like, you can do A, B, C, D, or E. Do it doesn't matter. Just do one of them. Do whichever one you feel like.
Yeah.
So sometimes that might be, as if like in the case of Luke, a lot of times, I'm just gonna yeet this guy to the ground.
Yeah.
Puts tools in your toolbox.
Yep. Okay, so let's go into the next section here. Here, note the text and gloss of another chasing. Chase twice. If you hit, then also do the ancient things. Note, or gloss, note. This means that you should use the chasing from both sides, and you should not forget the slice meanwhile. Understand it thus. When he has missed you with a stroke, so similar setup to what we had earlier, when he missed you with a stroke from either right or left sides, then counter strike skillfully to the opening. If he goes up then and binds beneath on your sword, then note as soon as the blades clash, and slice instantly to his neck, or fall upon his arms with a long edge and slice hard. So this is a similar kind of thing before, where we were responding with the Zverch, where our opponent came up and we ended up causing a bind, and then we would Zverch to the other side. Depending on how that bind happens, it also gives us the option here, goes up and binds beneath on your sword. Then note as soon as the blades clash and slice instantly to the neck or fall upon his arms. So I believe that was the last bit of video I have in this file. So let's take a look at that. So, yep, that's the right one. We had to cancel class the other week, so I edited this video, and then I'm like, wait, which order did I put this stuff in? So I'm talking about some of this wrong. Or did I do the video wrong? Wait a second. I'm sorry. This was me responding to a missed strike.
Do you need help? No, I don't know what I mean.
Okay, I actually did that one backwards myself, and I'm looking at it now. But I use the same kind of principle here. So this video is not, there's a slice, and then, yeah. We're going to just, sorry guys, I, now that I'm looking at the video, I shot a couple weeks ago for that, I did it the other way. I did it where it's a response to me, not a response from her. But yeah, so sorry, I'll at some point I'll re-record that and we can get a little more in depth. That makes sense now that I'm looking at it again. I just read it wrong the other day. I read it backwards. Sorry. So we'll skip that. I'm gonna make a mental note that we'll kind of pick that up for the next time. But the last one for the night then. Here note the text and gloss of the Uberlaufen, or overrunning. Who wants to strike below, overrun him, and he will be shamed. When it clashes above, then strengthen. This I truly do praise. Do your work or press hard. What? Gloss. Note, this is when you come to him in the Zufechten, and he strikes below to your lower openings, then do not parry them, but strike strongly above to his head. Or if he strikes with strokes from below, then note before he comes up with the stroke from below, and shoot the point in above long to his face or chest, and plant on him above so that he cannot reach you below, since all plantings above break and defeat those below. If he goes up and binds beneath on your sword, then remain with your long edge strongly on his sword and work nimbly to the next open, or let him work and respond instantly, thus you will hit him. So I think this is one that I want to say everyone's done in class at some point.
The Zufection, I know we've done it in class.
Well, one of the key here is the key to Uberlaufen is essentially the trigonometry of fencing in terms of working with triangle. Because the idea. What are you going to say, Jack?
Does Uberlaufen, does that translate to coming from under?
It's overreaching. Over Laufen, like reach. Yes, right.
Okay.
So the idea here is that if your opponent is targeting like the lower opening, the lower they target, like they're swinging at, say, your leg, because their sword arm is attached up here to their shoulder, they actually lose a lot of distance reaching down towards your leg, right?
Yeah.
As compared to up high. So if your opponent tries to play the game of trying to cut you in the leg, what you do is simply hit them in the head because you have more reach that way. Especially for you, Jack, with your long arms.
Oh, definitely. Reach is the easiest thing I can do with my arms.
A little bit of an advantage, yeah. So here it is. In this case, we're both starting in Vom Tag. Now, he comes in and cuts up my leg. I just hit her in the head. I move out of the way a little bit here, but she can't hit me, but I can hit her. We'll look at that. So slow-mo. Boom. Let's bring that back to the moment of contact. See here, this is what I'm talking about. It's not, I mean, if someone has gratuitously long reach, it's one thing. But you see how her shoulders are pointing the sword, downward here, and then her sword ends up coming out much lower, right?
Mm-hmm.
My sword, my arms are reaching up nice and high, and as a result, I'm hitting well past her mask, right?
Yeah.
Because if we clear and the other button, let's rewind that for a second, because when it comes to, again, kind of the let's say trigonometry of this, here's the roughly drawn in angles. Her angle is coming in here, but my angle is coming in here. And if we're calculating this roughly on being a relatively right triangle, let's say, the hypotenuse is always bigger, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So my advantage here in the reach, I mean, it's not an exact geometric triangle here because, biology and squishy bits moving around. But the rough concept here is that because she is taking this attack down low and limitations of physiology here, her attack is a much longer angle than the one that I need to make. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that translate to in terms of action? Well, let me hit that. Boom.
Okay.
So if you see an opponent coming at you, attacking low to the leg, to the lower openings, whatever,
You go high.
you don't have to, attack high. Don't bother parrying. Don't bother defending down low. Just attack high. That's simple.
Oh, he was talking about squishy bits.
Let me hit the clear drawings. Okay. Did I have another one from there? Oh, just hitting different openings or thrusting. You don't have to just do the hit to the head. There's just kind of a regular kind of Oberhau action. And that moves on. Okay. So that's the basics of the Uberlaufen against an attack to the leg, which is the first part of this. That first line, note this is when you come to the sufficient, he strikes below to your low opening, then do not parry, but strike strongly above to his head. The second part of this, or if he strikes with strokes from below, then note before he comes up with a stroke from below and shoot the point in above lung to his face or chest and plant it on him so that he cannot reach you below. So whether he's attacking low or cutting up from below, either way, his reach is going to be short. Get it?
Yeah. Because
So in that,
his reach is going to be short because of where his sword's ending up, basically, right?
mm-hmm. Yep, just kind of, again, it comes down to the limitations of the physiology, biology of it. If he's cutting up from below, he's going to sacrifice a little bit of range, which is why, honestly, I think whether it's sparring in class or when you're watching videos of tournament footage or any of that kind of stuff, you don't usually see people entering with a cut from below and an Unterhau. You don't see that starting off. Every once in a while, it's not. I'm not saying it's 100%, but I'm saying generally people enter with some variant of an Oberhau because that gives them that extra reach, and then they follow in with an Unterhau. In fact, I know Clara down with River City Historical Fencing, who used to train with us. One of her favorite little combos to throw is a right overhow to enter the fight, and as soon as she gets a response from an opponent there, indes during, she leaves there and comes around with an Unterhow to the other side on the opposite opening. So, fun note, by the way, if you ever go to spar Clara, when she goes to throw, let her throw an overhow at you and just parry and then turn to right flute. And then she just walks onto your point. It's fun.
I also
I did it to her a bunch of times once and then explained to her afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're going to do. So I just did. She's like, oh, damn.
Well, between that and the Crunk.
Yeah.
the only time I really enter a fight with an Unterhow is if my opponent is going to be coming at me with an Oberhow, because I can easily block them and then go into Ox from the Unterhow.
Yeah, it's one way to do it for sure from there. Yeah, for you. The advantage, again, you have there too is a lot of times you have longer reach. So we could not argue, but we could, part of the reason that works for you a little better too is because Uberlaufen, overreaching is a little more difficult on someone that's taller. So if you're fighting someone that has significantly shorter reach than you, then the measurements on that triangle I was showing before are a little different, right?
Yeah.
Your Unterhow with a shortened reach is as long as somebody else's Oberhow with their reach, right? That's what I'm saying. You get it?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure I'm being clear that.
Then there's me, who is the polar opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Robin and Jack are sort of the exact opposites of each other here. Okay, so I remember a little bit of video on that because I actually shot that one. Sorry, again. Tried to do this stuff too quickly one afternoon. Share. Okay, so this next one, again, what it comes down to is in the text here, if he strikes with a stroke from below, then note before he comes up with a stroke from below and shoot the point in above long to his face and plan on him so he cannot reach it. So here we go. My opponent's coming at me with a cut from below. I'm cutting into their cut and then shooting the point in myself to the face. So I see that coming. I defend against it. And then as soon as I see the opening, my point comes up. And I look for openings to the face or chest here because he's wearing a mask. And push.
Isn't there a name for that?
There's a couple.
For which?
For going on for what you just did there with the pointing at the face, or is that?
I mean, you could call it. It's very similar to some of the winding actions and things. It's in that little video clip. It was basically a Zornhow upside down.
Okay.
We both instead of throwing Oberhows, we threw Unterhows, but I then shot in. I dominated the center and thrust.
Okay.
So, any questions on that bit?
That was really the
Okay.
only question I really had.
Excellent. Okay. Well, that's going to put us to the end of what I had for tonight. Then, next class, I want to say. Yep. Okay. So for the next class, we're going to look at pages 125 and 126 of In St. George's Name, basically working from the Absetzen up through the Durchlaufen. Durchlaufen has a lot of content. So we'll probably do is the pulling, the Zucken. We'll probably stop there, and maybe we'll see how much time goes. But there, if you notice in the text here, when it says from the running through, it then has another wrestling, another wrestling, another wrestling, another wrestling. It has a whole bunch of stuff, so that might be its own class. We'll see, but at least we'll be at least doing pages 125 to 126 of von Danzig, continuing through the Hopstucky towards the end of the material on the longsword. So any other questions tonight, everybody? Okay. Well, thanks for coming, and everyone else, thanks for watching, and we'll see everyone next week.
Thanks.